Let us move to part 2, the significance and functions of adult education. What you just saw and heard if you watched the previous video was a very short introduction to what adult education and learning is. Obviously, there is a lot more to it. If you would like to know more about the history of adult education, please have a look at the reading list and task sheet available for this module. As I see it, the idea of my presentations here is to give you an entry point, to whet your appetite and hopefully motivate you to learn more. I would like to think of myself as a lifelong learner, and I still learn about this also all the time. I hope you can feel the same way. Our field is vast and we are never fully learned. Some may feel stressed about this, but I say embrace it. If you have an open mind, are curious, ready to listen, ready to question what you know, and if you manage to stay humble, the world of adult education is open to you. As such, you do not necessarily need to know all about the history of adult education in order to be a good adult educator. There are many working as adult educators without this knowledge, or without even formal teacher training, all over the world. In addition, within our field, there is a strong belief in learning by doing. You can be or become a good adult educator by just doing it. However, if you ask me, I think some knowledge and understanding of our history may both provide a basis for our identity as teachers, as well as inspire us to be ambitious in our teaching. What I'm saying is that you are not alone. Adult education has a long history and exists all over the globe. But we are often alone in our setting where we work and live, or we may feel alone and perhaps unsure about our role and status. In many parts of the world, adult education, as we talk about it here, is not part of national educational systems, or it is reduced to a small corner within the big picture. Thus, there may be a need to argue for the significance and explain the functions of adult education in a country. If you look at it this way, your job is not only to teach adults, but also to argue for it. This is a unique trait for adult education. No primary school teacher needs to explain why they are important in society. If this is true also for you, you may need good arguments. What does adult education do? In the previous video, I mentioned that there may not be a universal description of what adult education is and includes, apart from the general, and some would say obvious remark that it addresses educational needs. Again, this is different from other forms of education, where the target, content, and expected outcomes are often clearly defined and generally accepted. While the term lifelong learning is still popular in many places and is often used when we talk about all forms of education, it seems to me a lot of focus today is put on primary education and/or on vocational training. One reason for this may be that they are more easy to embrace and understand. Decision makers like things that they can understand and that they can measure. We are, after all, using public money to a large extent. Now, if you work with teaching, for example, reading and writing for adults, that is also rather easy to argue for. But even here we may be asked, what is the significance of this? Is it worth it? Shouldn't we just focus on the children? The first and easy answer is that being able to read, write and count is increasingly an absolute must for someone to be able to live a good life in society today. Adults learning to read and write are also more likely to make sure their own children gets the possibility to learn, according to several international studies. If you work as an adult educator in art, social skills, social sciences, environment, peace education, global citizenship or the like, it may be harder for you to explain why you are necessary and should be funded. Here a more roundabout way may be needed. A person that learns letters will also experience inclusion and empowerment. Literacy is not just about letters, it's also the key to society. It may sound pretentious and pompous to claim that we empower people, but I think it's true. That is, however, again often a hard sell. Empowerment, a sense of belonging, increased self-awareness, self-confidence, entrepreneurship, those are very hard to measure. And what is hard to measure may be hard to argue for, if your audience only believes in hard facts. So when you talk about these things, it may help to have some sort of trusted authority on your side. Globally, one of the most respected bodies in education is UNESCO. UNESCO is the United Nations educational, scientific and cultural organization. Back in 2006, UNESCO framed this complexity within adult education in a rather easy-to-grasp way in their 2006 report, Education for All, Literacy for Life. The report suggests that we can measure the development of a society using dimensions such as the individual, political, cultural, and social dimensions. Let's have a closer look at these. Individual development. Benefits for you and me include an increase in empowerment, emancipation, and the ability to use critical thinking. These benefits affect your health, family planning, and role in society. Social development. The ability to improve your health, affect your family planning, and help you engage in society on the individual level also creates social development. Political development. This in turn leads to political development, as more people are able to participate in decisions regarding their lives and the way society should move forward. And finally, economic development. The world and the world of work is becoming increasingly complex. Economies are more and more based on knowledge, and thus the higher the educational attainment in a society, the better it is prepared to face these rapid developments. Another way of saying more or less the same thing here is demonstrated in this table. Learning to know, learning to do, learning to be, and learning to live together. In all of these, adult education can play, and is in many places playing, a considerable and crucial role within all of these dimensions. Whether you decide to argue for the benefit of adult education using economical, social, political, or individual arguments, or perhaps even a mix of them, is up to you. This, in short, are some examples of the significance and functions of adult education. It is now time to move to part 3 and put active participation in adult education into the context of lifelong learning. But first, a quick question for you to reflect on before moving on.